The Judicial Service Commission is recommending Supreme Court of Appeal President Mandisa Maya for the position of Deputy Chief Justice at the Constitutional Court. The position became vacant when Justice Raymond Zondo took the helm at the Apex Court earlier this year. The JSC earlier interviewed Maya for the position. A pioneer in the legal field, she was one of the first women judges in the Eastern Cape High Court. She was also the first black woman in the Supreme Court of Appeal and the first woman deputy president of that court and later its president. Well, attorney and legal commentator Nthabiseng Dubazana joins us now via Zoom to chat a little bit more about this milestone. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. It is a remarkable milestone, isn't it?
It is so amazing. It is so inspiring for all of us, that the females in this legal fraternity. It is quite difficult for most of us to make strides, even if it's not by virtue of sitting on the bench, but even making your mark in the courts and all of those things. We are not given the kind of platforms that, we believe that we ought to be given. So seeing somebody like Justice Maya getting to the strides and that she's achieved so far, it is quite inspiring indeed.
What does it tell us about her that she was making headway so far back when it was almost unheard of to have such senior black females in these positions? What does that tell us about her, that she was breaking new ground, going through glass ceilings at different times?
Well, it gives me the impression that she is a fighter of note. In order for you to make it to certain seats, you have to consistently be fighting. You're not only fighting because you're female, you're not only fighting, you're also fighting because you are a black person trying to reach those standards. Remember, the legal fraternity has been dominantly white male and predominantly white male, and it's been quite difficult for females of any race to make it on the benches. But the first females that were allowed or were able to get to those strides were not black females. And then seeing her get to those positions, I mean, she was the youngest magistrate of her time in the Eastern Cape. I think she was around 33 or 30, somewhere there. And then she then went on to be in one of the highest seats in the SCA, and now she's going to the Deputy Chief Justice if the Ramaphosa officially appoints her after today's interviews. And then that in itself shows that the walls that we always come across when we're trying to break through this, she made a decision that she's not going to let those walls stop her from crashing through them. She'll go over them or around them as long as she will get to her destination. She had foresight and she knew what she wants and she went for it.
I mean, it's quite sad that it's taken so long, I guess, for a woman to get to this point. But interestingly, in the first interviews for the job of Chief Justice, she really went about saying, I'm just a woman judge. I'm not a judge who's a woman. Do you know what I mean? She downplayed the female side of it. And I suppose it's something that will follow her because she's breaking new ground. But we really ought to be having a conversation just about a competent judge.
Yes, that's very true. I understand where she's coming from. She wants to be recognized for her skill. She wants to be recognized for her knowledge in the law, for the profession that she is. She embodies the profession itself. She does not want it to be marred by the connotation that she is a female judge or a woman judge. She's just a judge who just happens to be a woman. And she's broken all these grounds by virtue of her skill skill set, and not because she was just a woman who is in the legal fraternity. I understand where she's coming from, but in the same breath, she has become that beacon for most of us females who are striving to be in such positions, who are striving to make their names in the legal fraternity. That one of these days, when we look back, we can see that, there are other little girls that followed for our footsteps, the way we are hoping to follow her footsteps and not give up and keep fighting as hard as we can, because it's hard enough to fight in the courtrooms and try to be heard as a female attorney. Now try to be sitting on the bench and yet not be marked with the fact that you're emotional because you're a woman. It is quite difficult, unfortunately. But, I understand where she comes from, but she's still an inspiration. Be that as it may.
Yeah, very much so. What do you think she's going to be able to bring to the Constitutional Court?
Well, looking at her judgments in the past and looking at how she has ruled over the SCA has come alive, so to speak, and things have been done in a more prompt or fast way. She has brought the SCA back to life, bottom line. So I'm hoping that when she gets to the Constitutional Court, the things that we always worry about, cases taking way too long, judgments taking longer than they're supposed to, and all of those things, even though, for example, today in her interview, unfortunately my connection was bad there, but she was asked why certain cases took longer than they were supposed to. Some things you cannot help, and cases take longer than they ought to, but she has tried her best to make sure that she finalizes matters and make sure that the SCA finalizes matters within time. So the administrative part of the courts, I think, should be able to bring more life to it, and I'm hoping as well, I beg your pardon, and I'm hoping as well that she brings the what is this thing I was thinking about? It just slipped my mind. But yeah, that is what I'm hoping that she will bring to the forefront when it comes to the Constitutional Court.
I suppose there probably is an expectation now that once she sits as the Deputy Chief Justice, that when Chief Justice Raymond Zondo retires in 3 years' time, whenever it is, that she will have had enough time and experience on the Constitutional Court bench that it then becomes almost an obvious thing to do.
We hope so. That is indeed the hope, that once that time comes, she'll just basically be, in a manner of speaking, promoted to be the Chief Justice. She would have sufficient time to have learned the ropes, and being the deputy, understanding what is needed of her in her current role, or in what would be her current role, and then the role of the Chief Justice. I was also saying that I was hoping that, because one of her judgments, a few of her judgments she's written in isiXhosa. So we are hoping that she brings the issue of language to the forefront, because that has also become a bit of an issue in our legal fraternity, that English and Afrikaans seem to be so dominant that even other languages are now falling on the wayside as if they cannot be recognized. So perhaps that avenue would probably be dealt with, when she's sitting in the Deputy Chief Justice chair.
Yeah. How much power does the Deputy Chief Justice have? Is it a symbolic position, or does it have some genuine power?
No, it really does have some power, obviously not as much as the Chief Justice, but in every big decision that's going to be made by the head of all courts, in the Constitutional Court, it would have to be run by her, but through her rather. She has to have such a thorough understanding of not only the Constitution, but obviously the law, which she already does, but she has to have a more in-depth understanding of it, so that in events whereby there's dissenting judgments and there's conflict of interest and all of those things, her role is that if the Chief Justice cannot handle this, it then falls upon her shoulders to make sure that whatever the Chief Justice cannot handle, she can resolve. So her role is not going to be that easy. And for example, look what Chief Justice Zondo did when it came to the corruption matters, state capture matters. He had to leave his seat by virtue of him being the Chief Justice. He had that kind of power that he could rule over such a commission. So her role is very hefty, and but I think she's up for the challenge.
All right, I want to talk about the female thing again. There's been countless studies done in the business world where they see that when there's females on the boards, that those boards tend to function better, partly because of the female perspective. I wonder if the same is true of a bench like the Constitutional Court.
It's fingers crossed. There's been a lot of female judges on the bench of the Constitutional Court, but none holding the kind of position that she holds. And to be quite honest, a lot of them have brought a lot of change. I mean, if you look at the history of the judgments from the Constitutional Court, from the time when women were introduced, the dissenting judgments have been women because they would feel, or they would, looking at the merits of the case, have a different opinion versus their male counterparts. And then when we look at, for example, the recent judgment where the dissenting judgment in the Zuma case, whereby it was Justice, what's her name? I forget, but the two of them had that dissenting judgment wherein it made a conflict with the majority judgment, whereby Nthabiseng was then sent to go serve time for failure to appear before the commission. So it has brought that kind of dynamic and deliberation between the judges, whereby it doesn't automatically become a unanimous judgment. So it has brought some very interesting insight, some good, some bad, but it has given us a different perspective on how to look at the Constitution and the constitutional rights that are entrenched there, things that are brought before the Constitution. Female in that higher position might bring an even more significant change within the Constitutional Court. And it ought to be fun to see how that's going to pan out.
All right. So as we speak, I think there's only two females on the Constitutional Court bench at the moment. She'll be the third. When do you think we'll see a time when the majority of judges on the Constitutional Court are female?
I don't think we can see that in the next 10 years. I don't foresee it. Already as it is to get to the lower courts, it's only now in recent years, maybe 2 to 3 years, that when you go to lower courts, you actually see a lot of female magistrates, which was not the norm in the past. It was men of all races sitting on the bench. And then that's just in district courts. Regional courts are even worse because the white men are still dominating that area. And then when you go to high courts, it's still the same thing. So it is not easy. I don't know why. I really don't have an answer for females to go it seems like it's difficult for them to go beyond the lower courts to go higher up. And when they do, there's such a limited number. You wonder what could be the cause or the hindering process that doesn't allow them to go further. So male judges of the Constitutional Court, I do not foresee this changing in the next 10 years. I think we have a long way to go.
All right, okay. And I suppose, is this a done deal? The president recommended her. She was recommended by the Judicial Service Commission for the top job in the first round. And I suppose, and I wonder if this round of interviews was more formality than an actual test.
Well, it seems that as soon as they were done, the JSC was deliberating, and then they're going to give their opinion or suggestion to the president, who then has the final say at the end of the day. So seeing as I could be mistaken, but it doesn't seem like there's anybody else that has been recommended for the position. So as a result, it's probably just a formality sake, just to be sure that we got the right person for the job. So let us just, put her through the fire one more time, see if she can still hold her own, and then let's take it forward. But, you know, a lot of surprises have happened in the past, and we thought something was a done deal, and then it shifted just like that. But yeah, no, we'll see what the president is going to decide.
Founder, director of Dubazana Attorneys, Nthabiseng Dubazana, thank you so much for joining us and your insights. And let's get excited about this milestone for sure. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, that's Nthabiseng Dubazana speaking to us about Justice Maya, who is picked to be the next Deputy Chief Justice. The President is the one to make up his final decision. He nominated her, the Judicial Service Commission interviewed her, and they've recommended her to the President. So perhaps it's a foregone conclusion. We'll have to wait and see.